Hello everyone and welcome to my next video on chapter 1 of class 12th bricks, beads and bones part 3 and the last part of the whole chapter. This is my channel October Star Creating Toppers. You can follow me on my Instagram ID for any updates. The topic that we'll be learning is discovering the Harappan civilization. So the first topic that we are going to see is Cunningham's confusion. Now Cunningham, who is that is Alexander Cunningham, was the first Director General of the ASI, that is Archaeological Survey of India, who began archaeological excavations in the mid-19th century. During that time, the archaeologists preferred to use written word, that is texts and inscriptions, as a guide to investigation. In fact, Cunningham, the first Director General, his main interest was in the early historic and later periods, that is in the 6th century to 6th century BCE to 4th century CE. A question that is usually given here is, who was Cunningham and what did he use for excavations, and what text did he use as a guide to investigations? The answer is, he used accounts left by the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims who visited the subcontinent between 4th and the 7th century CE to locate early settlements. Cunningham also documented, collected and translated the inscriptions he found in his service. When he excavated sites, he tended to recover artifacts he thought had cultural value. That is, he looked upon everything that he found on a cultural significance. Now, a site like Harappa was not a part, that is not in the period of the Chinese pilgrims, and was not known as a early historic city. So it did not fit neatly within the framework of his investigations. Although Harappan artifacts were found enough in the 19th century, some of these also reached Cunningham, but he did not realize how old they were. A Harappan seal was given to Cunningham by an Englishman. He noted the object. He also drew its sketch as is given here. You can see the sketch that Cunningham drew of a Harappan seal, but he very unsuccessfully tried to place it in the time frame he was familiar, not in which the Harappan seal was. This was because he, like many other people, thought that the Indian history began along the first cities in the Ganga Valley. Given his specific focus, it is not surprising that he missed the significance of Harappa. A new old civilization. Subsequently, many seals were discovered at Harappa by archaeologists such as Dayaram Sahni in the early decades of the 20th century, and in the layers that were much older than the early historic levels. It was after that their significance began to be realized. Another archaeologist, Rakhaldas Banerjee, he is also known as R.D. Banerjee, found similar seals at Mohenjo-daro, leading to a conjecture, that is a conclusion, that they were part of a single archaeological culture. Based on these finds, in 1924, John Marshall, the Director General of ASI, announced the discovery of new civilization in the Indus Valley to the world. You can also be asked to explain this sentence, as S.N. Roy noted that in his book, that is Story of Indian Archaeology, Marshall left India 3,000 years older than he had found her. Explain how. Then, this was similar because till then unidentified seals were found in excavations at Mesopotamian sites also. It was by then that the world knew of not only of new civilization but also of one which was contemporaneous with the Mesopotamian civilization, that is during the same period of the Mesopotamian civilization. And this is another important question you can be asked to explain. John Marshall's stint as the Director General of the ASI marked a major change in the Indian archaeology. He was the first professional archaeologist to work in India. He brought his experience of working in Greece and Crete to the field. And like Cunningham, he too was interested in spectacular finds and was equally keen to look for patterns of everyday life. Marshall tended to excavate along regular horizontal lines, measuring uniformly through the mound. That is, for example, there is a piece of land like this. This is a piece of land. He found certain artifacts here, he found certain artifacts here. He then grouped them together, even though they might be found at different layers of soil. For example, in this part, he might have found a few artifacts here. He might have found a few artifacts in this layer of soil and some here, but he grouped them together in this part. Even being at different layers of soil means that this was the oldest, after this came this, as each artifacts were covered by a layer of soil through a period of time. So valuable information like this was lost. Now how was this corrected? This was corrected by R.E.M. Wheeler after he took as the Director General of ASI in 1944, who rectified this problem. Wheeler recognized that it was necessary to follow the stratigraphy of mound rather than dig mechanically through uniform horizontal lines. That is, you dig like this, without considering the stratigraphy, that is, the layers of soil. Moreover, as an ex-army brigadier, he brought with him military precision to the practice of archaeology. Then, after the partition, if we look at the present day national boundaries, they have no connection with the boundaries of the Harappan civilization. With the partition of India, it became more difficult for us as the major sites were in the Pakistani territory. This led to Indian archaeologists to try and locate sites in India. After many surveys, many sites were found in Punjab and Haryana and Gujarat also, and many sites such as Kalibangan, Lothal, Rakhi Ghari, and most recently Dholabera have been discovered. As time goes on, new issues have also assumed importance. Many archaeologists are keen to look for cultural sequence, while others try to understand the logic underlying the location of specific sites. They also deal with wealth of artifacts, trying to figure out their functions. Since 1980s, there has been a growing international interest in Harappan archaeology. Many modern scientific techniques are being used to find out more about the Harappan civilization. The next topic that we are seeing is problems of piecing together the past. We have already seen that the Harappan script has not been deciphered, and hence it is not that helpful in understanding the ancient civilization. It is the material evidence that allows us to reconstruct the Harappan life. These could be materials such as pottery, tools, etc., and also organic materials which generally decompose. What actually survive are stone, burnt clay, or metals. It is also important to know that only broken or useless objects would have been thrown away. Other things would have been recycled. Consequently, valuable artifacts, that is, which can be used, which are important, were either lost in the past or hoarded, and were never recovered until an archaeologist found it. In other words, such finds were accidental rather than typical. Classifying finds. After any artifact is discovered, how do we classify them in groups? The first principle of classification is in terms of material, which is very simple, such as stone, clay, metal, bone, ivory, etc. The second is more complicated, which is in terms of function. The archaeologists decide whether it is a tool or an ornament or both, or meant something for the ritual use. And when we try to actually understand what is the function of an artifact, we try to resemble it with the present day things, such as necklaces in present day were probably used to understand the beads found in the Harappan civilization. The archaeologists also try to identify the function of an artifact by investigating the context in which it was found. Was it found in a house, a drain, in a grave, or a pit? Sometimes the archaeologists have to take recourse to indirect evidence. There are traces of cotton at Harappan sites, so to find about clothing, they have to depend on these traces or depictions in sculpture. Archaeologists also have to develop frames of reference. We have also seen that the first Harappan seal that was found could not be understood till archaeologists had a context in which to place it in terms of cultural sequence or in comparison with the finds in Mesopotamia. Then what were the problems of interpretation? The statue that we see here of a mother goddess is very important from exam point of view, as it has also been asked in the board exam question paper to identify. Then the problems of archaeological interpretation are perhaps most evident in attempt to reconstruct archaeological practices. The early archaeologists, when the archaeology started, they thought that certain objects which seemed unusual or unfamiliar may have had religious significance. These included terracotta figurines of women who were regarded as mother goddesses. They were also heavily jeweled with elaborate headdresses, like this heavily jeweled terracotta figurines of women. And the rare stone statuary of men in an almost standardized posture, seated with one hand on the knee, such as the priest king, was also similarly classified. In other instances, structures have been assigned ritual significance. These include great bath, fire altars found at Kalibangan and Lothal. So we saw 3 examples that were in the problems of interpretation, that is the mother goddess, the priest king, and structures. So these 3 important points are important to write answer regarding this question. Attempts have also been made to reconstruct religious beliefs and practices by examining seals, some of which seem to depict ritual scenes. Others with plant motifs are thought to indicate nature worship. Some animals, such as the one-horned animal called the unicorn, depicted on seals seem to be mythical and composite creatures. In some seals, a figure shown seated cross-legged in a yogic posture, sometimes surrounded by animals, has been regarded as a depiction of Proto-Shiva. which is an early form of one of the major deities of Hinduism. Besides, conical objects have been classified as lingas. The topic, the point of Proto-Shiva is a very important one. We'll also be seeing in next topic what exactly were the problems arising regarding the Proto-Shiva. Many reconstructions of the Harappan religion are made on the assumptions that the later traditions provide parallels. That is, whatever is happening today, such as the worship of the nature, also happened during that period of time in 1800 BC, 1800 BCE. This is because archaeologists often move from the known to unknown, that is, past to the present to the past. That is, whatever is happening in the present also happened in the past. While this is plausible meaning unlikely in case of stone cairns and pots, it becomes speculative when we extend it to religious symbols, because we can be sure that the pots that we use today were also used for the same purpose in the early period. But when we extend it to religious symbols, we have to understand each and every aspect of the religion. Let us look at the example of Proto-Shiva seals to understand how religious symbols often become speculative. The seal that we see here of the Proto-Shiva is very important, and it is also asked in exams. Now, let us look at the text Rig Veda, which mentions a god named Rudra, which is a name for Shiva used in the later Puranic traditions. However, unlike Shiva, Rudra in Rig Veda is neither Pashupati, that is Lord of animals in general and cattle in particular, nor a yogi. In other words, if we can say, the depiction of Rudra does not match with Shiva as in the depiction of Rudra in the Rig Veda. So the religious symbols often become speculative. The next year is your home assignment. You can do all of these questions to actually understand what exactly we had studied till now, and if you attempt all these questions, you can easily understand what actually is coming in the exams, as these are also questions from the exam point of view. If you need any help regarding these questions, you can also mail me or see me at my Instagram ID. You have already know my channel October Star. Then we'll next be seeing the important terms. What all important terms are from this chapter which can be asked in the exams? Shamans. We saw in the beginning of the chapter about shamans. They are men and women who claim magical and healing powers, as well as the ability to communicate with the other world. The other world as in the superficial world where we have no idea about. Then comes a linga. A linga is a polished stone like this, which is a symbol of Shiva. It is worshipped as a symbol of Shiva. Then hods. We already found out that we discovered gold. A lot of gold was discovered from the hods. Now, what are hods? Hods are objects kept carefully by people inside containers such as pots. The hods can be of jewelry, metal objects, say for use by metal workers. For some reason, if the original owner, the one who actually kept those hods, did not retrieve them, those hods remain at the place where they are till some archaeologist finds them. Then comes fanes. We already saw about the pots of fanes. Now, the faience was a material of brown sand or silica mixed with color and gum and then fired. Then comes stratigraphy. We also saw what is stratigraphy. Stratigraphy is the study of rock layers and the layers of earth, like this. What exactly is in each layer? Then cairns. Cairns are a simple hand mill for grinding grain. Next, you should also know the meaning of Mohenjo-daro, which is the mound of the dead. Then Kalibangan means black burnt bangles. Fire altar is where bone sacrifices were offered. Then, what is mythical? We saw about the mythical creature unicorn, that is the one-horned unicorn. Now, mythical means which only exists only in myth, that does not exist in reality. Myth meaning stories which people make. Then, what is kiln? It is a large oven for baking clay and bricks, drying wood and grain. Then, what is a mound? We saw the mound of the dead. What is a mound in Mohenjo-daro? It is a small hill with a large pile of earth or stones. Next, contemporaneous. Contemporaneous. We also saw that the Mesopotamian civilization was contemporaneous with the Harappan civilization. Now, contemporaneous means existing in the same period of time. That is, if the Mesopotamian civilization was in one end of the world, during the same time at the other end was the Harappan civilization. Next, artifacts are objects made by a person. Any object, such as tools, ornaments, pottery, jewelry, these are all artifacts. Then comes inscriptions. They are words that are written or cut upon something. Then comes exploration. We studied about surface exploration, that is traveling around a place to learn more about it. Then these are all the NCERT questions. It is very important to do NCERT questions as these are the basis of any question paper. These are the most basic questions which you should be knowing, and most of these questions can also be given in a question paper. If you have any doubt regarding the NCERT questions, you can text me, you can look for me. And you already know my channel, October Star. Then comes the map questions. Map also has significant importance in history, because when you are studying history, you should also be knowing where those places are located that we are talking about. So, this is the first important map that you have to remember. There are few places that you have to remember in this. In fact, this is the important map in the whole chapter. In this, you have to remember Mohenjo-daro, Fort Deji, Chanudoro, Balakot, Dharamira, Nageshwar, Lothal, then Kalibangan, Banavali, Rakhivadi. Now these are the most important places that you have to remember in the chapter first map. If you look at this map, we can also see Manda, the extent of the Harappan civilization, and Sukhagendar. Then comes the timeline. This timeline is basically not that important, but you can read to know from when and when did the Harappan civilization actually last or start. This is another timeline. You can see what exactly happened in which year, what happened, when happened, but the dates are particularly not that important in history as students think about. As what is important actually in history are the events. What happened while digging at a site in Harappa, that is what is important, not when that digging happened. Then the Indus Valley life of people. This has been classified into three forms, that is economic life, the these all we saw, Veds, about the trade, crafts. Then comes religious life. We have just been reading about this. And then the social life, how everything was differentiated between the people. And thank you for everything, for looking at my video, for taking time to watch my video. And please look out for my next video, which is in the Hindi explanation of the same chapter with our notes. And I shall provide you of chapter 2 of the same chapter, chapter 2 of the book 1 very soon. Please look out, and please like, subscribe, and also comment on my channel, and please click the bell icon for more regular updates. Thank you, and see you soon.